Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Money Down Pod, episode number 15, the NFL recap, and what an NFL weekend it was. That is Shawn White. I am Kayvon and Shawn. We are the hosts of the Money Down Pod, and we are excited coming at you guys once again for a great NFL recap. Shawn, before we get into it, how are you doing today, my guy?
Doing well. I'm rocking the Sacramento Kings gear because, we're always a dumpster fire, but at least we fired our coach that needed to go this time. So maybe they'll turn around. Maybe they won't. They haven't for 20 years. We'll get to some NBA talk after the NFL season finishes, but I just had to rep the team since we fired old Luke Walton out of there.
Yeah, no disrespect to Luke Walton. If you're ever listening to this show, maybe one day you will be. You just weren't the guy for that job at all. You should have never got in the first place. But again, we'll get into that some other time. We're sports fans all around, so we talk about that stuff. But for now, that's pre-show stuff. We talk off camera. We'll bring that on camera once NFL season. Let me fix my camera speaking of right here quick. Once NFL season ends, Shawn, let's get into it, man. It was a interesting weekend. It was a wild weekend. It was a shitty weekend for me. I'll just go ahead and put that out there because the Falcons you too. But hey, at least you didn't spend your hard-earned money to go there and watch your team not put up a single freaking point. And should I just start with that, or should
go ahead. Hey, you're fired up, and I feel right. That was the first game of the week. Go ahead. Yeah. I didn't see any streaking, so I didn't see that happen.
Well,
but
let's put it this way: if it was streaking, I wouldn't have made it to the field because I was so damn hammered by the third quarter. Once I realized this is going nowhere, and the saddest part about it is, man, first of all, the final score didn't really reflect the actual game. The end, they had the fourth quarter, they just took off with it. But the Falcons were in that game all the way into the third quarter. They just couldn't score. And it all came down to, one, you just realize you don't have the personnel. But most importantly, man, no Cordell Patterson, no Calvin Ridley. We just didn't have the guys. But second, the play calling was atrocious, man. The play calling, dude, Arthur Smith, I'm not someone that ever likes the idea of firing someone after one season. And I'm not putting that out there for Falcons fans, but I have seen Falcons fans, and some actually smart ones too, not those dumb ones, that have brought up the notion of firing Arthur Smith after 1 year. Let me just tell you guys right now, it's not going to happen. Arthur Blank is not that type of owner. He would have to really do some egregious stuff these last whatever so games for that to happen. Arthur Smith is just not that kind of guy. But there is a point to be made that he came here to be an offensive guy, and his offense looks terrible. His decisions, when you're facing 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 inside the 30-yard line, why are you going 6 yards back to get 1 yard forward? He's doing that every time. He did it 3 times. 3 times during that Thursday night game when the Falcons, it was first 7-0. Excuse me, it was first 3-0. We tried to go for it on 3rd and 1, didn't get it. Then on 4th and 1, we kicked the field goal, had a flag, missed the field goal after that. Next time it was 10-0. Tried to go for it on 3rd and 1, didn't get it. 4th and 1, same exact play call, didn't get it. We're not trying to QB sneak it. We're not trying some fullback or some jet sweep or something where you're not going backwards. Everything is backwards, man. He hurt us in this game. Again, we probably weren't going to win that game because it just showed we just did not have the personnel on offense. But to be at home and to not score a single point, and to most importantly, get inside the Patriots' 30-yard line 4 times and come away with 0 points 4 times and come away with 0 points when most of those times it's 10-0 and then 13-0 where you score a touchdown there, you're right back in that game. Arthur Smith has some issues he has to fix, bro. That's what I saw there. What did you see on television?
Yeah, so I was watching the game pretty intently because usually how we do this before the pod started is whenever our teams didn't play, we'd pretty much pay attention to the other one's team so we could talk about it more. But now with the pod, I kind of try to flip around a little bit when you're watching and we're not on at the same time, just so I can get a good feel of all the other games as well.
Same.
So I really got to dive in and watch again like I used to do. And I'll tell you what, y'all have some similarities with Arthur Smith's play calling to like a Darrell Bevel run offense, from what I can tell. And that's a bad thing. That's not a good thing.
No.
For some reason, y'all's receiving core without Calvin Ridley, obviously, and without Patterson, mimics our bad receiving core on the Jag side. And for some reason, both our OC, Darrell Bevel, and then Arthur Smith, they're running ISO routes all the time with bad receivers. It doesn't make any sense.
Makes no
because
sense.
They can't get open on man. And
no, they can't get open at all.
Yeah. So you got to, at that point, if they're going to run man, you got to run some rubs, some picks. You've got to run some play design to get people a few yards of separation. And neither one of them do it. And I find that weird. I know Arthur Smith didn't have to do that much in Tennessee because, I mean, well, number one, A.J. Brown would get open. And number two, they had to devote so much attention to Henry that you couldn't really play coverage like that or lock up like that without getting ran all over. So that's something that Arthur Smith's going to have to figure out now, being on a different team. You don't want to ever call someone like a one-hit like offensive coordinator type that's just a much better coordinator. Yeah. I don't know if the head coaching duties are distracting him from coming up with a better game plan or what it is, but he's got to do something to get these receivers open. And I think one sequence really decided the game, and you brought it up. When you guys had the ball for that play that set up, I don't know if you could see it where you were sitting at, but Pitts actually had the first down on that short play call.
Why didn't he call it? Why didn't he challenge it?
He should have challenged it.
What the hell is he doing? Why did he not? Dude, I was screaming at. I was screaming, challenge the play. It made no sense to me.
Yeah, so I was watching, and my wife was beside me, and I was literally like watching it there. I saw the ball go over the line clearly. Like, he's right beside the stick. Like, he's right beside the sticks on the TV, and you can see the ball like edge out of it. And then they called it. I was like, oh, that's first down. And I think on the broadcast, Joe Buck actually says, oh, first down Falcons, they're going to keep the drive alive. Yep. And I looked over, and Amanda had said something to me. All of a sudden, I look back, and it's like 3rd and 1. I was like, well, what? I said, huh? And for some reason, y'all just went up to the line and snapped it off. Didn't even think about it. Nothing. Didn't run the play clock down to think about the spot. Didn't look at the review on the replay. Because spot calls sometimes don't get called back with the replay, but that would have definitely been overturned on the replay. Sure. It was very obvious. So that set the tone for the next sequence of events. You had the field goal that obviously then you do all sorts of stupid stuff, move it 5 yards back.
It's real quick about that. Yeah. Who moves on a field goal attempt, bro? They are doing that play every single time. I mean, that is just mind-blowing to me that they got a penalty on that. But,
did in the stadium, I don't know how you were doing. Did you think he moved?
No, I had no idea.
No, he lined up wrong.
Oh, see, I thought he moved.
No, he didn't. He lined up on the line.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
That's even worse. How do you line up wrong on a field goal attempt, bro? How do you line up? Oh, my God, that makes me even more mad.
Which, again, that goes back to coaching. Again, that's special teams coach, head coach. You got to make sure your players know what you're doing out there. And, I mean, the player, obviously, that's dumb. But still, you got to teach that stuff in practice. You can't let penalties like that happen in crucial parts. Y'all move the field goal back. Who's usually, money. Of course, he misses it. And then the Patriots went down and scored. I kind of looked over, man. I was like, this thing might be over.
I said the same thing, my friend. I said, uh-oh.
I said, I don't know. This Patriots defense is about to just press them right here. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep up. One thing about the Patriots side that I do want to discuss, Mac Jones throws a ton of checkdowns. Yeah. I mean, it's a clinic by Josh McDaniels of how to take care of a young quarterback that doesn't have to do very much. Yep. Because I know he gets a lot of love for winning games and stuff, and he should. He gets a lot of love for being accurate, which he is. But I mean, good God, I think they ran 12 screen passes the first half.
They did. So we were talking about that. We were talking about that in the stadium. You're right about that. And I want to know, is it Josh McDaniels, like you said, and that's just what Mac Jones is going to be? Are they ever going to open the playbook more? That's something that we have to focus on, because you're right. They do a lot of checkdowns.
Yeah, in comparison, I think I've watched Justin Fields play twice, and I think he would throw 2 screens a game. And I know watching Trevor every week, he threw one screen against the Niners.
Is a problem to Nagy. I mean,
yeah, that's what, and like I said, it's a problem to Bevel.
Some damn screen passes. They threw one on Sunday. Darnell Mooney took it 50 yards to the house. that's an issue on Mitch Matt Nagy.
Matt Nagy, yep. Yeah, and like I said, that's an issue on Bevel and the coaching staff in the Jags too. Now I don't know. The screen was to Robinson. Robinson's heel ain't right, so he only got like 2 yards when he could have had an easy 15. So maybe they just don't think they have the personnel at this point to throw screens. Then that's why ETN was drafted. But I mean, just getting back to that, I mean, McDaniels and Belichick put on a masterclass of coaching on Thursday.
Yep.
They just outcoached Arthur Smith into the ground, which is what you're talking about. It was so bad. They had the coverage rolled so perfectly on everything they were trying to do. And that Falcons O-line, Jalen Mayfield as a rookie, he gets destroyed on plays. I mean, he's back in Ryan's lap like 2 seconds after this ball snapped almost sometimes. And then McGarry on the right side, my God, he was getting drummed by Judah on the whole game.
Yeah.
It was a total mismatch personnel-wise, like you said. I'm glad A.J. Terrell got that pick, which was actually funny. The one time Mac Jones did throw downfield, Terrell immediately picked him.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's like the one positive you got to look at every week is like, hey, we got A.J. Terrell and Grady Jarrett and Deion Jones. It's like –
yeah.
But
no, you're spot on, and it goes back to like this again, man. I'm not trying to put Arthur Smith on the hot seat here because it's wrong to do that. But bro, it makes you worried that he's not understanding what you said about the man. He did not have to do it in Tennessee, and it just makes me wonder: does he know how to change it up? Like, does he know how to change it up, man? That's what I'm really worried about. And it's something we're going to have to wait and see. It's going to be something Falcons fans have to have patience on, and we're going to have to wait and see. But he's got to do – and again, it's not like – look, Bill Barnwell wrote it for ESPN.com, wrote an awesome article today on – if you guys – by the way, if you're a team out there that's a losing team, he wrote an article on what all the losing teams should do these last couple games of the season – to put positive momentum moving into next year. The Falcons are dead last in quarterback pressure. Dead last. So, like, he's not getting help from the defense. The defense is terrible. We paid homeboy all that money, Dante Fowler. He's awful. He was doing good before he got injured. Since that injury, he's just hurt. Like, it's not all on him, but he's got to pick up the slack because he's an offensive guy, and he's just not doing it. And even with the personnel mismatch and the coaching mismatch and all of that, bro, we still had numerous chances to score points and make that look like a reasonably close game. Again, 7-3, or it was 3-3. The field goal, it went down 10-0, right? 13-0. You score that touchdown or you call a flag on the play, or you challenge that first down. That brings you inside the 15. Who knows what happens from there? Maybe you score a touchdown. Like, it could have looked a lot better if Arthur Smith made some better play calls, and that's what he's got to work on. And again, we don't need to keep talking about it, but these are things I've got to see from him. We're moving on.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say on that, for that last thing, that was the other play that broke y'all's back real quick on that one. Y'all ran like 3 fullback freaking handoffs, and on one of the most crucial downs, you try to do it again. It's like, you got to get away from that, man. Like,
it's got to be just, dude, to put Matt Ryan under center and just push it.
Yeah.
Like, just push it. Like, why is he so scared to do a QB sneak with Matt Ryan? Dan Quinn used to do it with Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan was fine at it. He's not a Tom Brady or anything at it, but he was a damn good player at getting a 1 yard. Like, it just, I will never, unless you have a Derrick Henry, a Jonathan Taylor, an Adrian Peterson type guy in his prime, I never understand why coaches like to go 6 yards backwards to get 1 yard forward. It's mind-blowing to me, and it's the most nauseating and just, it just really pisses me off. But last thing on the Patriots, you're right about Mac Jones, but they are a Super Bowl contender. It's crazy.
As crazy as it sounds, they are. I agree.
They are a Super Bowl contender, especially because, and we'll get into this, who else is good in the NFL, Shawn? I mean, we can move this seriously. On Sunday today, I'm sitting there, man, and I'm like I like to write notes when the Falcons are playing or aren't playing for this pod. And I'm sitting here, and the first thing I write on my notepad is, who is good in this league? Because the Colts go and drub the Bills. And that offense, I'm telling you what, Bills fans, Josh Allen's awesome. That offense is so damn Josh Allen's eccentric. You guys have issues. You're not even trying to run the ball. And every good defense knows it. That's what the Colts did. And that's why they got turnovers. And that's why they won that game. They knew it. They weren't even preparing for you to run the ball. They knew it was all throwing. And that's an issue, man. Who is good? The Rams have fallen back to earth. The 49ers, they look good, but the Kyler injury worries me. Like, Tampa's lost a couple games in a row. I'm serious, man. I don't know who's very good in the NFL right now, and that's why the Patriots are Super Bowl contenders.
They are Super Bowl contenders because it is wide open on that. I will say I have one team ahead of everybody, and you brought it up just because I think that the Cardinals are actually a lot better than people give them
the Cardinals
credit.
are awesome.
Because I actually think they handled Kyler's situation how the Browns should have handled Baker's. Like, set him a week or two, few weeks, get him healthy. And that was big for Kyler and Hop, too, because Hop takes a beating usually, and having him kind of fresh down the stretch is going to be important, too. But winning 2 divisional games on the road with Colt McCoy, even though you lose the Panthers game.
Both.
Yeah, even though you lose that Panthers game in between, I got to put the Cardinals as like the number 1 contender right now, as crazy as it sounds with Kingsbury and them. If Kyler comes back healthy, I mean, they were 1 pass away from beating the Packers, even though the Packers weren't at full strength either. But you would think those 2 teams in the NFC kind of separated, even though the Packers did lose that game. Like I said, they're down a bunch of their stars, so if they get their group back healthy, I feel like they're a little notch above in the NFC. But in the AFC, and we're about to get to the Chiefs, and we'll talk about them as we lump them into these teams, is wide open, the AFC. Because the Titans out here just lost to the Texans. And I'll tell you what, they play the Patriots next week. If you don't think that Bill Belichick is going to have a plan to go against Tannehill, how the Texans did, and just absolutely destroy him on the week, you got another thing coming. So that might be a good bet to look at, because I have a feeling the Patriots are going to be real ready for him. You're right about the Bills not having a run game. That's how the Jags were able to beat them. I mean, that's how they lose to teams like that. They just can't run the ball. So they just pin their ears back and get Josh Allen. And if he doesn't kill you with digs down the field, they can't stay in games. No. You look at the Ravens. The Ravens are a strong team, but I mean, they're hit and miss every now and then. Lamar plays the worst first half of anybody I've seen, and then he comes out and dominates the second. So I mean, you got a lot of these teams, and then there's just the Chiefs, who they're kind of on the upswing a little bit. Their offense didn't click well in Dallas yesterday, but they're still, that defense is getting to the point where it's like, all right, you give Patrick this defense, he's going to figure it out on you. And I think that's kind of where we're at on that during that game yesterday. So
yeah, and that's, I said this, I think I said it a couple weeks ago on the show. I said the AFC West, and I really should have just said it for the whole AFC, the whole league. They made a mistake by not putting their throats on the Chiefs team's neck before they figured things out. And this is why coaching, man, well, let's just get right into that Dallas game in Kansas City. This is why coaching is so important in the NFL. And I think it is the most important sport for coaching. I think coaching matters in the NFL more than any other sport. Steve Spagnuolo has coached the hell out of that defense. And that defense is now playing. And Frank Clark, they've gotten their guys back, and that the pressure's helping a lot too. But they pretty much said, Cowboys, we're going man-to-man. Let's do it. I mean, they played man-to-man, and I know they were down Cooper, and then Lamb went out and all that stuff. I personally don't know if it would have mattered. I just think that defense was all over Dak Prescott. They were giving him no time, and the Chiefs are a legit team right now, man, in the AFC. Again, I don't know who's great in the AFC, but they are a very legit team in the AFC right now, and they showed it on Sunday, man. I don't think that this is that bad of a thing for the Cowboys, but one thing that stuck out to me, man, they're just not coached well. I'm sorry. I know Mike McCarthy has a Super Bowl ring and all that stuff. I think that the downfall of this Cowboys team is Mike McCarthy. And I think that he will be the reason that they don't make a Super Bowl this year. I think, and if they do make it, he'll be the reason they don't win it somehow. There's just some of the things that Mike McCarthy does. It's so nonchalant. It's just so like, just the way he goes on the sideline. He doesn't press any situation. It was just, oh, okay, it's okay. We're not getting enough yards. We'll get it next drive. Same thing. There was nothing new. There was nothing different out there. the Kansas City Chiefs out-coached the Cowboys, and they out-hustled, they out-energized. They just did everything better than the Cowboys did on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm not sure what McCarthy does. Like,
I don't know.
Kellen Moore's the whole offense.
He is the whole
He does,
offense,
and Dan Quinn does the whole defense. So
just sits there.
McCarthy's supposed to be time management, and he doesn't even do that well. So that's kind of where he's at on that. I agree with you on that. I don't think they're a overly well coached team in a head coaching aspect. Obviously, Kellen schemes well, and them not having Cooper and Lamb obviously was just a huge missing thing. Once Lamb went out, it was kind of like, okay, who are we going to throw to? Even though Cedric Wilson and Gallup are serviceable as your 3 and 4 option, them being a 1 and 2 puts them lower tier of the league and wide receivers, to be honest, if that's your 1 and 2 option. As for the Chiefs, we didn't give enough praise and credit to how good Ward is as a corner. I don't believe either. He was out, and that's when they were getting torched, and they had Sorensen in the backfield. They benched him, obviously, mostly. So that was a smart move by the coaching staff. But having Ward back, he's locking up receivers on the outside now.
Yeah.
Having that lockup, and then obviously moving Chris Jones back to where he plays in the middle, that made all the difference in the world. Not having him rush on the outside.
Yeah.
That isn't what he does.
No.
Put him back in the middle, and he dominated Connor Williams all game long. So that on defense, the Chiefs have kind of figured it out. That's what it is. They got their guys back. And we really didn't give enough credence to those injuries earlier in the year. Nobody really did. Nobody ever talks about them as elite players, but they actually kind of low-key are. I mean, Chris Jones, obviously, everybody knows, but Ward and the secondary is actually solid. It's just no one ever talks about them. As for the offense, it's kind of – this Travis Kelce drop thing is a little weird for me. You said he caused another pick for Mahomes.
I know.
Dropping the ball. He's done it like 2-3 times this year, which is very unusual for one of the most sure-handed players in the league. So I kind of think he needs to get his head on right, because I think that's one of the issues they're having, to be honest. You can't have those plays where those picks happen, especially when it's not Mahomes forcing the ball. But Kelce's their number one target. Even though Hill on the outside is the guy that hits you with the dagger play that just breaks your heart, Kelce's the guy that destroys you drive in and drive out over the middle on third down. All their important plays always go to him. And if he's having these drop issues through the season, that's a little bit alarming for it. But I do think Mahomes is getting back on track. They started throwing more screen passes, started running the ball a little more. I think they've settled down a little bit. I think they are a contender in the AFC for sure. I would, like we said on the last game, I would watch out for those pesky Patriots, because Bill always has a plan, and they can kind of ball control them. So that is going to be an interesting matchup that they face. But I do think the Chiefs have the upper hand on about all the teams remaining, just because the Chargers' defense isn't good enough, and it's just that's just where we're at on it.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's why I said I think the Patriots are legit Super Bowl contenders. And I don't think there's anything a doubt about that. But again, I agree with you. Those players are difference makers. They're back. They're right now. And the Kelce thing is something to watch, because he's had a very up and down season. And we thought that Raiders game maybe got him back into it, but then he had another crucial mistake on Sunday. So you're right about that, man. That's something to watch. The Cowboys, on the other hand, they lucked out that they're playing this Thursday against just a devastated Raiders team, man. Like, the Raiders, the whole incidents and all that stuff has finally just caught up to them. And Derek Carr is getting so much pressure, and we all know Derek Carr is one of the worst quarterbacks when under pressure. He does not like to be under pressure. It's not disrespect to him. A lot of quarterbacks clearly don't like to be under pressure. He just doesn't handle it very well. And the Cowboys are lucky that they have the Raiders on Thursday, because they're not going to have Lamb and they're not going to have Cooper. And if they were playing a legit team, they could drop another game and really fall out of the standings there. So obviously they're going to make the playoffs and all that stuff, but they can really push them down. But the Cowboys in general, I think they're going to be fine. Their defense is still pretty good. I mean, they did cause some issues to the Chiefs offense. Really, the Chiefs just settled for a lot of field goals instead of touchdowns. They were in scoring position all game. They just couldn't convert. But overall, real quick, how are your feelings on the Cowboys?
I think they're still contenders. I think they just had too many injuries to really compete. I mean, you can't really knock them on this game for that. They do look poorly coached, like we talked about. That's the one issue I have with them personally. Once you get a Tyron Smith back, On defense, they didn't have their two best pass rushers in Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence, so they'll come back too. So that'll be a big boost. We were talking about the boost the Chiefs defense got with their players coming back. When those two come back, it'll be a big time thing because then you move Parsons around a lot more. You don't have him rushing every play.
Yeah.
He more selectively rushes. That's a big time boost for them. And once the two receivers are back, I think Dak will be fine. I am a little concerned about Dak after this injury. He's had 2 of 3 bad games now.
Yeah.
This one I chalk more to the receivers. And I mean, no offense to your Falcons, but are we really counting that Atlanta game as like some big Dak game like that? So it's like, come on now, you gotta play a little better. I don't know if the injury's bothering him, but I'd like to see him pick his game back up to where it was before that. And I think we'll see that going forward. Honestly, they have a weak schedule. I think they play the Cardinals, and that's it. And I think that's the rest of their. Yeah, I mean, they played a lot of division games, obviously, and they're all bad teams. So maybe they drop one of those maybe or something, but they'll make the playoffs. I think they'll make some noise in the playoffs for sure, like we were talking about before. They'll get these players back. They have the talent. Dak will play well, the receiving core, and it'll be a mad dash to see if they can actually win the big game because I was hoping they'd compete and win this game against the Chiefs and kind of shake that whole we don't beat the really good teams in the league mantra that they've had for years, but we'll just have to keep waiting until maybe the Cardinals game, maybe the playoffs, and see if they can get over the hump against the big boy teams when they do play them because they dominate the mid to average teams.
Yeah, no doubt, and that will be something as we follow along here. Let's move on here to the Vikings-Packers game. That was my pick of the week. I had the Vikings plus 2.5, plus 3. They ended up covering. That was a game that I just felt like that the Vikings are going to come out. Mike Zimmer has played Aaron Rodgers very well as a coach, especially at home. And the Vikings, the reason why I picked them is, I heard a lot of people say, oh, maybe that Green Bay defense isn't as good as we thought, all this stuff. I just think the Vikings are an extremely talented offense. And when Kirk Cousins is playing well, I mean, I think the Vikings have the 2 best duo. I think they have the best duo of wide receivers in the entire NFL. I think you could maybe look at the Bucs and say with Evans and Godwin, I would take Jefferson and Thielen over Evans and Godwin because I think Jefferson is better than both of those. And then I think Thielen's a good complement. So I think they have the best duo of receivers in the NFL. And when they have a great running back in Dalvin Cook, I don't think this has anything to do with the Vikings, man. The Packers, man. I do think the injury to Rodgers' toe is something to watch, but I don't even think that's a big deal because he threw for 300-plus yards and 4 touchdowns, and he said his toe was in pain all game. So I really just think that the Vikings used their superstar talent, and they showed up at home in one of the best home field stadiums in the entire league. That's my takeaway from the game. That's why I predicted the Vikings to win.
Yeah, the Vikings, I've got to give props to Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson's top 3 receiver in this league.
Yep.
He's so good.
He's so good.
I mean, everything about him. He stems routes perfect. He's deceptively fast. He catches literally everything in a radius. Like, it doesn't even have to be on target. He catches anything that's in his general area. He's insane to watch. As far as the duo thing, I might would go with the Cowboys too over them two, just because I think Cooper and Lamb.
I wouldn't.
I think Lamb's small enough. Like the gap between Lamb and Jefferson is like small enough to where I think Amari Cooper is just a lot better than Thielen at this point in their career. That's my opinion.
That great.
But
I know that sounds like a hot take. I think Cooper's outside the top 10 for me.
See, I don't think Thielen's like all that good. I think he just compliments him well.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Cooper is better than Thielen for sure, but I think Jefferson is better than Lamb to the point where I would take them too. But it's apples to apples. They have a great receiving core as well. I just have never been that high on Cooper as a receiver.
Let me put it to you this way, because everyone would have Hopkins and Hill and all them coming in. Would you agree with me in saying Jefferson's probably number 2 right behind Devontae Adams as best receiver in the league?
Yeah, no, Devontae Adams is the best receiver in the league.
And then Jefferson, I feel, is number 2 right behind him.
Put Jefferson right now. I would put Jefferson at number 2.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. I think if you take Thielen off the field, I think Jefferson would play almost like Devontae Adams. I think they're almost the same player the way they play.
I think it's a good point. Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
That's kind of where I am on that. I mean, if you had Rodgers throwing to Justin Jefferson, I feel like he'd probably put up Devontae's numbers.
Completely agree.
They run the same routes and everything.
He's awesome. He's amazing.
But yes, I had to give props to him. But like you were saying, the Vikings offense is a powerhouse. And this is finally where what we talked about with those Packers playing so well on defense, even with the injuries finally caught up to them.
Yeah.
When you have that elite of talent with Dalvin Cook, you got Jefferson, Thielen, all them. When you have that elite of talent, you do need your pass rushers. You obviously need Jair Alexander if you're trying to cover a receiving core like that. So I think those caught up, but they were still in the game. I mean, good God, Rodgers was diming them up nonstop like he always does against the division. So you're right on the Packers. I am a little upset that Elgin Jenkins tore his ACL because once Bakhtiari came back and he kicked inside, I mean, they're lucky Bakhtiari's coming back to be able to fill that void. But having both of them on the line, like two all-pro type line players, I think that would have alleviated a lot of pressure. And now they're going to have to kind of keep getting over that hurdle. Once they get Aaron Jones back, though, they'll be fine on offense. I'm not worried. A.J. Dillon played well, but Aaron Jones being that receiving threat will be another dimension to it. The Vikings are the point we got to make, though. The Vikings are a playoff team, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're going to have a big game against the Niners this week that we'll preview on our NFL preview show later on. But the Vikings, I think, I mean, they should have won more games than they had. We talked about it. They were losing games that were very winnable. And they came out and they played dominant. They did what they were supposed to do. I think the Vikings are a playoff team. That offense is elite. The defense will play just good enough. I mean, that's what keeps the other team in the game, that defense. I think they end up winning enough games to make the playoffs at this point, with the NFC looking the way it is at the bottom with the wild card teams.
I don't even think it's a question. I think the Vikings are the scariest non-division leader other than the Rams right now. The Rams are obviously the scariest. Like, when I mean division leader, Cardinals, Cowboys, Packers, and Bucks. Like that, those are the four scariest teams that are division leaders, and then Rams, right? So that's the five scariest teams in the NFL. The Vikings are the next. I think
no one wants them in the playoffs.
Yeah, the Vikings and the 49ers, to me, don't even put the Saints in there. The Saints are a joke. They with Trevor Siemian at quarterback, they're doing nothing. This will be a hot take. I don't even think the Saints make the playoffs.
They're out.
I think the Eagles right now are more likely to make the playoffs with the way they're playing and what Sirianni's finally doing with that run game that has just changed things up for Hurts. I think that you're right on about that. The Vikings are, and listen, man, that when they start playing at home, that place gets scary, loud. And again, they're probably going to have to go on the road just because of how much of a lead the Packers have in the playoffs. But that is a team with the weapons that they have. If Kirk Cousins can dial in, he can win. They can win some serious games. And like you said, getting Aaron Jones back, the Packers are fine on offense with Aaron Jones without it. Like they were great. And I was like, man, watch. The Vikings are going to do exactly what I thought, and Rodgers is still going to beat them, and I'm going to lose my best bet of the week. But luckily, last second, they made that play down there. The Vikings are legit. You're right about that.
Yeah, let me get into this right here, because this might be a little bit of a take for you. Everyone talks and piles on the NFC East. I can make an argument that y'all's division might be worse than them at this point.
For this season?
Yeah, for this season.
Agree.
Yeah. Like the way the trajectory that the Falcons are going on, they're kind of looking rough. I'm not willing to count y'all out yet just because of your schedule, but the way y'all are playing, you're about a game from that happening. The Saints are done for. I mean, after Kamara went out, there was no way Simeon was going to be able to carry them, so they're done for too. And then, I mean, the Panthers, which we're going to get into here in 1 second. I mean, even with Cam, who actually looked pretty good, I mean, running the ball and everything, they don't have a shot either. So it's, I mean, losing to the football team and the Eagles, they're kind of the two teams that are getting hot right now, actually.
No, you're right. And let's get into that Panthers game. And I think you're right about the division too. The one thing about the Falcons, again, if Falcons fans want to have hope, I'm very disappointed in Arthur Smith right now, and unless Ridley comes back. Now, I will say this. He is designated to come off the IR this week. We haven't heard anything about it. If Ridley comes back and Patterson's healthy, we have the 49ers in front of us, which would be a playoff team, so that's a big head-to-head. We have Jacksonville, we have Carolina, we have Detroit, and then we have the Saints again, and then we have the Bills. So that's the one. I mean, all of those games are winnable except that Bills game, really. I mean, you guys beat the Bills, so
y'all just don't get the pressure. That's the one issue with that.
That's the one thing.
You would think Josh Allen
on our team like you do.
Yeah.
That can create pressure. So that's the one thing. But anyways, we'll see what happens when things come down that road. But if Ridley doesn't come back, there's no shot. There's no shot at all. Moving to the Panthers here. Cam Newton looked good. My thing is this. Is Joe Brady purposely not allowing him to throw down the field, or does Cam Newton not want to? He threw the ball down the field once, and it was a seam pass down the middle to Christian McCaffrey for a touchdown. I mean, they literally did not let him, or maybe he didn't want to throw. Is Robbie Anderson still on the team? Look, I get it. Cam Newton played well. They have some weapons that they can use on deep passes here. They made it obvious that they are not throwing the ball down the field with him. And credit to Washington, because Taylor Heineke in these last two games, and I've been hard on Heineke. He's played his butt off. He's played two of the best football games of his career these last two games against the Bucs and the Panthers. Washington went out and won that game. I don't think the Panthers did a bunch of bad things to lose that game. I just think Washington was the better football team on Sunday, and the Panthers' great defense that we all like to compliment fell apart. That's really my opinion on the game, other than I'm sitting there watching the game saying, man, they do not want Cam Newton to throw that ball down the field. That's just they just didn't want that to happen.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the New England in him. Maybe he just kept that, and then that's the plays he likes now. Or I don't know if he doesn't trust the shoulder. Maybe he can't throw it downfield. That might be just where it is.
It might be. And again, he played fine. I'm not hating on him. He played fine. But I'm just saying they have the weapons to add that dynamic. But maybe he can't.
Yeah, the shoulder could just be shot. I mean, I know from throwing a baseball and throwing mine out that the short little stuff you throw, your arm's fine. It's when you start going further out and you're trying to snap that ball off and get the power behind it, then your shoulder just starts hurting. Maybe his shoulder's just at the point where if he tries to throw it downfield one or two times, that thing's just going to be sore the rest of the game. It's just not going to come back. I don't know. But they did use him exactly how they needed to use him. Other than that, they ran the ball with him well. They gave the screens and the passes to McCaffrey, who's obviously just – I think he's got 3,000 receiving yards, 3,000 rushing yards. He's insane. It's just double threat there. But you're all right. Washington came in and won the game. And Washington's playing better. It's kind of strange. They lost both their defensive ends, and now their defense is better. It's almost like an anomaly. It's very strange to look at. I don't understand it at all. And then all of a sudden, like I said, they've been handing to Gibson, even though Gibson had a rough game, had a fumble and everything. Just sticking with the run was so important. I didn't understand – I mean, I'm a Gibson fantasy owner, but even beyond that, I didn't understand early in the season why you're trying to let Heineke sling the ball all over the place. Yeah. It's get the ball to your running backs. McKissick's not bad as a backup. Hand it to both of them, let the run game carry you, and limit Heineke's throws to where it's some ISO throws to McLaurin on one-on-ones, or rather he just spreads the ball around. It didn't make any sense, and I feel like they've gotten back to that these last 2 weeks. Maybe they just saw it in the film and decided to change it up, but that's good coaching on their part. Like I said, between the football team and the Eagles, both of them are kind of on the rise as the hot teams, trying to make a little push for that last playoff spot. I don't know if they're going to have the firepower to do it with the Niners and Vikings, but they're the ones that's trending upward right now. It wouldn't shock me to see one of those two make a late push and try to get in.
Yeah. I agree. And for the Panthers fans out there, I'm not ruling them out. I think just like Washington and the Eagles, I think they could go on a run too. I really do. I think that if they kept playing that, I just think right now the Eagles have more to offer offensively. And I think that Washington just has some type of juice about them. And that's what happens. That's what happens later in the season. But if I had to pick right now, I would give the Eagles that final wild card spot. But for you Panthers fans out there, if Cam Newton keeps playing well, doesn't turn the ball over, doesn't fumble it, the Panthers can be right back in there as well. They're only one game out at 5-6. The only thing is you now don't have that head-to-head against Washington that could eventually hurt you down the stretch. But Panthers are still in it.
I will say that their schedule's not that bad. No. Schedule coming up, Dolphins, Falcons. That's going to be a big game between those two. Bills, which, I mean, obviously a tough game. Buccaneers, Saints, Buccaneers. The two Buccaneers games really what's going to throw you off. You kind of got to hope they lock it up and maybe rest that last week. Maybe if there's a chance to get in that way. But their schedule's definitely doable. I mean, it's the division and the conference they're in. I believe the NFC South played the NFC East this year. Just having the division games and then playing that four, it's like a toss-up. Like you just throw paper in the air and you don't know who's beating who.
No
so
doubt.
all those teams have a shot. It's just going to be who can emerge and actually put some victories together down the stretch. Panthers are definitely one of the teams that can do it. So we're going to keep a monitoring eye on that. Maybe they can come in and play a little hot Dolphins team that's won a few games in a row here next week and see if they can get a win there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I completely agree on that. Let's move on to another team that definitely has a shot in the mix, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. And they went into Jacksonville and they beat you guys like they were expected to do, obviously. This is one of the scariest teams other than Minnesota to go along, I guess I should say, than Minnesota because of the coaching aspect of it and because of the players that they have like Deebo Samuel. I still think they're a little bit limited offensively. Obviously, just Jimmy G's not going to offer you that much. But if Elijah Moore can come back healthy, he obviously was out this game. And if he can run well and Deebo Samuel can just keep providing the mismatch that he is, they finally got Ayuk heavily involved in this game against Jacksonville. All season long, fantasy managers have been wondering, where the hell is Ayuk? If they can keep getting him involved, the 49ers are a team that definitely could be scary to play come December, January if they make the playoffs. They got that huge win against the Rams, which is what they needed. Now they can start to roll things and put consecutive wins together. Was very impressed with the 49ers once again. I want you to touch on something about your Jaguars here and the 49ers, but and this is no hate at all. Okay, this is no hate at all. But I just want you, because this is a take I heard. A couple of people's take I heard saying this, that and maybe it's false reporting, whatever. But that the inside the organization of the Jaguars, they're not discouraged or disappointed, but they expected that Lawrence was going to come out of the gate as a better player. Now, listen, we know there's issues. He can't get a lot of his receivers can't get separation worth a damn. We know that. Probably the worst in the league, other than maybe what the Falcons are doing right now. And I will say this about Lawrence. He should dominate our defense on Sunday. He should have his best game as a rookie on Sunday. We'll see if that can happen. Are you, and again, Lawrence is, the reason this is a topic is because when you're being compared as the best prospect since Andrew Luck, in some cases even better, I'll admit it. I expect Lawrence to be better than Luck. I really do. Like, that's how much I thought about Lawrence. Are you looking at this and saying, I'm not worried, I'm not discouraged, but I thought, okay, maybe he could put the team on his back a little bit more.
So okay, all right. There's a lot to unpack there. So let me formulate how it is. I'm assuming you're on the Jason Lock and Four report.
Yes,
that's what. Okay. So that report on the breakdown, I don't think it's about Lawrence as a player. I think it's Urban hating his coaching staff. That's kind of what I got out of it.
Which
and
is
that's
fair.
like the
coaching staff was a terrible hire. And I said that when you told me about Bevel, I said, bro, I have caution about that.
Okay, so I'm screw it. That's our podcast. I was gonna talk to you about this off air. I'll give you the whole theory now. This is my theory on this whole thing. In the offseason, I'm going to break all these reports together and put what I think actually happened that was true. Because a lot of NFL people was doing a bunch of reporting here and there with like one or two sources. And it was really throwing like a whole huge thing of shade that didn't really make sense. Here's where it was. In the offseason, I fully expect this. Urban's first thing he wanted and the biggest thing he wanted was for Alex Smith to sign. And I think it screwed the whole plan he had up. Because there was a report, and nobody's really covered it, but I believe it's true. Urban's plan is to coach 5-6 years, try to win a Super Bowl in that amount, but groom a successor and hand him Trevor Lawrence and the team. Yeah. I fully believe he thought that would be Alex Smith.
Pretty much what he did with Ohio State and Ryan Day.
And once Alex Smith didn't sign, because he was going to sign Linehan as the offensive coordinator. And nobody really wanted Linehan all that much. But see, that's where I'm putting the pieces together. Linehan was Alex Smith's coordinator at Utah.
Yep.
They could build a game plan around while Alex taught Lawrence from in the quarterback room, maybe play a few of these games because we know our talent's not that good, and ease Lawrence into it. And then once Alex Smith decided, no, I'm just going to broadcast this year, it threw everyone for a loop. Bevel interviewed really well, said, hey, look what I did with Russell Wilson. My thing with Stafford was good the last 2 years. You brought Marvin Jones in. He'll vouch for me. And he just went with Bevel, who's someone he didn't know at all. But he had hired receiver coach Sanjay Law, who's not a good receiver coach, by the way. You can look up. He's had like 3,000-yard receivers in his career.
Yeah.
The receiving corps regressed. But he hired him based on that Linehan hire. And once Alex Smith didn't sign, I believe that all fell apart. And that's why we have the offensive staff we have. I think Urban's frustrated with the staff because I feel like he thinks that the receivers have regressed, which they have. They were better last year. They aren't getting open now at all, especially LaVisca. He's not doing anything hardly. Fumbled the ball. He can't get it. He can't get a rhythm going. I think we're going to see sweeping changes on the offensive side this year. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me if it's Dan Mullen. He wants to go to the NFL. Him and Urban love each other.
That's a terrible idea, but yeah, keep going.
I mean, I'm assuming that's what's going to happen, but yeah, I think it's going to be Dan Mullen. I think he's going to probably keep prodding Alex Smith to get on the staff. That's what he wants. He's probably going to try to get him to be a quarterback coach or something. But he'll fire everyone sweeping, hire a new receiver coach, and that's kind of where it is. I think that's what those reports are. I think Urban's unhappy with the offensive coaching he's getting because he kind of left the offense to the other people, and they don't run anything he likes to run, and they don't do anything offensively that he enjoys. They don't have any speed, anything like that. As for Lawrence carrying the team, look, we were 1-15 last year. We didn't make that many big pickups or anything like that. It's a bad team. He has. I mean, Nick Bosa
I don't mean carrying his teams to win. I just mean his play overall.
Oh, like, well, I mean,
his inaccuracy at times, his decision making, like that's what I'm talking about. Are you a little bit like, I didn't see this in college?
Oh no. Oh, so okay. I watch the games and break the whole thing down as much as I can. In the Colts game, he was the most inaccurate I've ever seen him, which I expect a game or two like that.
Of course.
I'll tell you, he misses some throws, but he missed occasional throws in college like that too.
Yeah.
The biggest issue he has is he has to slide in the pocket over the whole time immediately. And as he's sliding, no one breaks open the whole time. So he has to dirt the ball or eat it and throw it away. And then when he does make an on-target throw, it's dropped. We have so many drops. Yeah. It's just it's the offense as a whole is out of rhythm. It's not just him. He's a rookie quarterback.
No doubt.
So I understand where people can look at box scores. You can see his inaccuracies and say, hey, he wasn't as bad like that in college. It's a whole different world out here in the NFL. So I'm not really concerned about that. I think they need to get some receivers around him, get some better offensive coaching. Yeah. He'll be fine. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at on that.
And that's a great breakdown. That's a great breakdown. And I honestly think non-Jags fans will find that very interesting as well because it's a really good breakdown. And again, like I said, I believe Lawrence is going to be great. I have high expectations for him. When you're the number 1 overall pick and everyone was saying it's Lawrence and everyone else is the Empire State Building below him. Like that's the difference we were talking about in the draft. People aren't going to look at it other than the ones that truly dissect the game. And even some of those analysts are saying, man, I'm not going to lie. Lawrence is a little off here and there. That's just how it is, but he's a rookie. I said right away, I was worried about the Bevel hire. I do not like what Bevel does. I just don't like his scheme at all. And it's not that I don't like the idea of Dan Mullen, because I think Dan Mullen is a hell of a coach. I think that Florida just jumped the gun on that, but with the internal stuff, which, by the way, we're going to really get into that on the college show. I have a lot to say about that. They had to fire him because of what was going on there. I think he could do a great job for Lawrence. I just wonder, do you want to bring in someone being an offensive coordinator for the first time? But maybe it could be good for Lawrence because Lawrence is also, coming out of college, Urban Meyer, the chemistry, all that stuff. We can get into that another time, later on. You could speak on it real quick if you want, obviously. But that's just something I just wanted you to speak on that.
Yeah, so on the Mullen thing, that's all speculation. That's just what I mean, number one.
I know it's speculation, yeah.
No, so if he was to go there, believe me, Urban and him's getting ripped because the same media that covers Florida covers the Jags, and they all hate Mullen right now.
They hate
so
him.
that's one issue you would have. The thing that about the offense that you're talking about, that is one thing that he'd be a first-time NFL coordinator. I got to shout Bucky Brooks on this because he said it when they hired Bevel. Bucky Brooks said he's a little worried when that happened, that Urban went too far away on the offensive side as to going with all NFL people. His whole staff on the offensive side are all NFL people, not innovative college guys. So maybe that's Urban's way of correcting that and being like, hey, we're still going to have some NFL coaches out here, but we've got to bring an innovative younger guy, even if it is his first time, to bring some schemes in. I just want to see someone that doesn't run ISO routes with receivers that can't get open on man every play. But I'll get to the 49ers now because I went on for a while on that. But that's what we do. We go on about our teams.
I wanted you to bring it, yeah.
Yeah, so on the 49ers, them getting Kittle back, that's actually the key. I mean, what a player.
Yeah.
He was dominant in the run blocking game, number one, and then catching too. I think that's actually been their biggest thing on offense is they've gotten back to running the ball. But I think it's because they now have Juszczyk and Kittle out here blocking on the outside again, and Shanahan can run that whole run scheme that he loves to do so much. I mean, Deebo Samuel's taking the ball from the backfield like a running back running for like 100 yards. He's insane. Ayuk had a big game. He was catching everything. And I'll tell you what, he was running some routes today that he hadn't been yesterday that he hadn't been running all year, and it's impressive. He started stemming things to where like he'd get up onto the defender in zone and then stem it like slowly to the hole. And that's some coaching right there because he hadn't been doing that all year. So he's been playing well. They've got their blue chip players back. It's like you said, Jimmy G, can you trust him? I don't think you can. He's wildly inaccurate still. I mean, they just make incredible catches for him constantly. But he does have the weapons to get over it. It's just, I don't know. Jimmy G's just not that guy to win a Super Bowl, in my opinion. I don't know if he's the guy to make the playoffs, if they might have been in too big of a hole. But they are one of the two teams, them and the Vikings, that I do. If I had to put money on who's going to make the playoffs out of the group that we have in the NFC, my money would be Niners-Vikings.
No doubt. No doubt about it. There's no doubt. And that's why all they had to do was just keep winning a couple games here and there to stick in it. The NFC's so bad down there. They're fully in it. And Kyle Shanahan can put on a coaching performance like no other. So I agree with you on that. That's a great conversation. Really good insight on the Jags there by Shawn as well. Moving on real quick, there's really only one more game, in my opinion, that we just kind of want to hit on here. And what that is, to me, the Seahawks are done. The Seahawks are done. It's what we brought up last show. This might be the end of the either the Pete Carroll era or the Russell Wilson era. If they're smart, it would be the end of the Pete Carroll era because the quarterback can play much longer than Pete's going to keep coaching, in my opinion. But maybe Russell doesn't want to be there, so they stick with Pete. I don't know. That's the takeaway. And also, Steve Keim is the executive of the year, and Cliff Kingsbury's the coach of the year. Because you do not have a backup quarterback in Colt McCoy, who's good but not great, who's a backup, not a starter, and you don't go on the road and win 2 games in a row against division opponents on the road by 10 or more points, unless you have a hell of a roster and a really good coach.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I'm glad you brought up Steve. Sorry. I'm glad you brought up Steve Keim. My God, what a job he's done. I thought he was going to get fired a few years ago, honestly.
Yeah.
Even last year, after that collapse they had, I thought it wasn't looking good for him. The moves he's made in this offseason, though, bringing in James Conner. What an underrated signing.
Yeah.
He's been one of the best backs in the league, and he's their backup. They start Edmonds usually. They have such a good 1-2 punch with that. I mean, bringing in A.J. Green, who everyone thought was washed. I mean, even with him and Hop both out, they still have Kirk and Rondale Moore, who they drafted.
Yeah.
The way they've surrounded Kyler with weapons, I mean, getting Rodney Hudson from the Raiders at center, I mean, what a pickup that was. I mean, even the backup center plays well, but when Hudson's in there, you can just tell the protection's so much better. It's crazy. It's just all these decisions they made. Keim's the executive of the year. Kingsbury's coach of the year for sure, too. I mean, they run the same offense with Colt McCoy back there. They just don't do as much running. That's with the quarterback. As much quarterback running. They're still slinging it. I mean, Colt McCoy's throwing 40 times. Like, Kingsbury sticks by his offense. As for Seattle, I missed on that pick. That was my lock last week. I thought Seattle would come out like their season was on the line.
Yep.
And if they did, that was a very poor performance of it. It was terrible.
It was bad.
And I mean, Russ clearly isn't right throwing the ball. I mean, that's not an excuse for him at all like that. I mean, it's just obvious. If you watch Russell Wilson play in his career, you know he's much better than the last 2 weeks he played. He just can't grip the ball right or something. It's just inaccurate. And that's never been a problem with him. Something's going on with DK up there too. I mean, I don't know if DK is happy right now with how things are going, and that's something I'd watch if Russ gets traded. It wouldn't shock me if DK didn't demand out. He definitely has those tendencies a little bit. But I think if you're the Seahawks, you got to fire Pete Carroll at this point. Just bring in someone Russ would want, because that's the best way you're gonna get everything going. Speaking of locks, my other lock, by the way, I should have tweeted this out. I had the Ravens, but once Lamar went out, didn't bet that at all.
Don't blame me on that.
So I should have tweeted that out, but yeah, so I basically missed on the one lock on that. I do believe the Ravens would have probably blown out the Bears the way the Bears were playing if Lamar had played. But as far as the Seahawks go, they're done. Stick a fork in them. I mean, I don't see them reeling off enough victories to make it in, especially with the threshold of wins they're going to need. So they're done for sure. And mad props to the Cardinals, because they're, like I said, they're my pick for best team in the league right now. And once Kyler comes back, it's going to be fun to watch.
No doubt about it, man. And that's that's pretty much my exact thought on that. They are a really, really good football team. And credit to Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury. That's pretty much the show here, man. Shawn told you about the lock that he missed on. I told you guys earlier about me getting the Vikings. Shawn, anything else you want to say before we move on? We'll finish up the show here.
No, we should be good to go. We should be good to go on all these platforms. So if you're seeing us, make sure you like, subscribe. Make sure you're giving us ratings, or like trying to spread the word on us. Please do give a comment. We got a comment coming up on tomorrow's college show we're going to talk about. Like I said, we read these comments, we'll reply to you, and we'll put you on the show, shout you out. We're going to do that for the college show, since that was the show it was about, and that's what he wanted to talk about. So that's what we're going to do. Just make sure you're interacting with us. It's fun to break it down with you. If I have any Jags fans disagreeing with me, let me know. If you got any Falcons fans mad at Kayvon over that take, maybe they love Arthur Smith, his family's listening, maybe they want to chime in. Anybody wants to do that, come on, bring the heat, bring whatever topic you want us to talk about. We'll be sure to do that. Like I said, keep us going. We're going to keep doing this thing no matter what. So that's where we're at on that.
No doubt about it. Exactly. And the guy had a great comment. We're going to break it down. It was an awesome one. So bring any type of comment you have. We will break it down. This is the Money Down Pod. That is Shawn White. I am Kayvon. This was episode number 15. We will be back later in the week to break down college football, the upcoming rivalry week, the playoffs, and so much more, as well as the NFL breakdown as well. So we'll talk to you next week. Once again, thank you. Like the show, subscribe. We'll talk to you later on.